Okay, this is a short video, probably the first in the series of 3 videos on how to set up an emergency fund. And in my opinion, one of the most important parts of any kind of emergency preparations is having money, more precisely cash. Because we all know that cash is king. Whenever anything goes wrong, you can always wave the dollar bill, as they say, and you can get a response. You may not have the same success using credit cards or traveler's checks or personal checks or even money orders, because cash is liquid. You can do things perhaps a little underboard with cash that you can't do with other forms of exchange. And if you're confronted with an emergency situation, everything that you do may not necessarily be above board. So you'll need to have cash. Now, I'm not talking about anything patently illegal or anything like that, but you may actually find yourself in a situation where someone is willing to help you if you got the cash. I'm not sure exactly what situation they might be helping you in, perhaps helping you get across a bridge, safe passage through hostile territory, anything. And if you have cash money, you stand a better chance of getting help than to say, well, here's my credit card. Well, credit card's not going to do any good in that situation, but cash will. So not only can you use the cash for your emergency, let's say emergency evacuations or different emergencies. It could be household emergencies. It could be emergencies in which you just need an infusion of cash real quick. And one of the most important parts, I think, of having an emergency cash fund is having a plan of how to actually use that money. But before we get to that, I'm just going to show you how I like to break down cash reserves for emergency use. Experts say that whenever you create a cash emergency for, let's say, dire emergencies, emergencies where you might have to relocate, not necessarily SHTF emergencies, but let's say that it is those particular types of emergencies, shit hits the fan. They say it's better to have small bills instead of big bills. I think part of the reason why is because whenever you counterfeit, you're more likely to counterfeit larger bills than smaller bills. So you want to keep it to the smaller bills so that the person actually accepting the money has a high degree of confidence that he's not getting shafted with a bunch of counterfeit money. Now, I'm not an expert on counterfeiting or anything like that, or what is considered counterfeit, but I think $20 bills might be the most frequently counterfeited. And I do have $20 bills in my emergency cash funds. That's only to keep things from getting too bulky. I could have all ones or all fives or all tens, but once you start having bills that are too small and too numerous, the manner in which you store them gets bigger, and I'll get into the manner in which I store them a little later. But this is how I typically do it. I like to store money in $100 increments, and that's so that the $100 is a nice round figure. It's easy to count $100 And when you see how it's set up, it's, it just makes it so simple and straightforward. There's not much additional thought that you have to have. Once you have it set up, it becomes almost automatic. So the way I like to have it is, I like 2 20s, 1, 2, 3 10s. All right, so that's 60. Nope, that's 40, 50, 60, 70. Okay, 70 right off the bat. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s. So that's 90. And 10 ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here you have $100. And the way I like to store this $100 is in envelopes. Now this envelope is the small size, the letter size. It's not the long envelopes. I forget what number they are at the moment. I thought I would remember it, but I don't. So the first thing I like to do is label the envelope e-cash or some other designation, starting with number 1. And each time you accumulate this much money, you can just put it in the envelope, number 2, number 3, until you've reached whatever desired number or amount of cash that you wish. And on the back, I list the bills that are in there. So I have 10 ones, 4 5s, 3 10s, and 2 20s. That way I know exactly what's in here. And once I have put it in here, I like to close the envelope, seal it, and across the flap where you actually seal it, put my name. Usually I just scribble my initials there. And if you happen to have a significant other that you're sharing things with, and this is just a made-up name, much too hot, you would have her sign it, her or him sign it as well. That way you can be sure that both of you know what's in here. And just to keep things honest and to keep someone from tampering with it. And this is what this attempts to do, make it tamper-proof, so that nobody gets antsy and wants to use the money for something that it wasn't designated to be used for. And then once that is done, seal it with packing tape to make it even more difficult to tamper with this. So this is going to be essentially tamper-proof, other than by somebody who might actually want to just rip it open and grab it. And I don't think that your partner, once he or she is aware of what you're trying to accomplish, will do that, because that's just going to make a big fuss and fight and just compromise any trust that you have in each other. And money, of course, is one of those things that makes relationships fall apart. Just disputes over how to handle money. And any survivalist or prepper out there, this should, in my opinion, be the first thing that you prepare, is your monetary fund. So before you go out and buy your survival food, before you go out there and get your equipment, get started on your emergency fund, because you'll never know when you'll actually have to evacuate beforehand, or if there's another emergency that comes up, you might have to dip into this, and you'll already be prepared, at least on that front. And with this, you can perhaps acquire things on the way, whereas if you had the stuff already and you needed the money, you might not have it. It's always better to have the money in hand, I think. And also you have to have a plan on what this emergency fund can be used for. I have 3 criteria that must be met before I allow myself to dip into this. And so far I've never actually reached that. So my emergency fund, the cash portion, is adequately stocked, and I'm satisfied with where I am with it at the time being. And the criteria that I use are: 1, if there's ever a need for an evacuation, then I can dip into my emergency fund because I might need it in that. So 1 would be evacuation. 2, if I am out of my job, if I lose my job and for an extended period I cannot find another job, I've lost my employment, that would be another reason why I would dip into my emergency fund. 3 would be serious health issues that may require all my money, because your money sitting someplace is not going to do you any good if you're dead or dying. So in order to maintain your health, I think it's only prudent that you make it accessible to yourself. And 4 is if I find myself in some sort of legal straits, basically if I have to make bail or something, or if a family member, a dear family member really needs to get bailed out, and I have some cash available to make that happen, then that would be another reason to be able to dip into the emergency fund, because eventually you'll get 90% of that back. My understanding is for bail you will get 90% of that back. They'll keep 10% of whatever you give. That's my understanding of it. I've never actually had to do it. I've known some people who have done it. That's what they claim, so I'll just go with that. But that is basically how I set up excuse me, the e-cash portion of the emergency fund. And this is best kept in your home in a safe, because every home should have a safe or strong box, preferably one that is bolted to an immovable structure such as a floor, and your e-cash should be kept in that. Your safe should be fireproof and waterproof, as evidenced by the tsunami in Japan, where a lot of safes were washed away and eventually a lot of them were recovered. I believe that a lot of the contents were identifiable, so they weren't destroyed, and that's how this should be stored. And keep mum on where you actually store that, where your safe is. If you do have a safe at home, don't broadcast it, keep it quiet, but you should have one with your important documents in there, birth certificates, or at least copies of birth certificates, flash drives with that information on there scanned and put on there, or CDs, probably better yet, since CDs may not degauss the way a flash drive might be able to. But that's pretty much all I have to say about the, for now, all I have to say about the cash portion of an emergency fund. So let me know what you think about this particular method of establishing cash funds. Oh, and one thing, You should be able to find money in order to do this. This is a long-term project. Don't just think that you just have to have $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000, whatever your cash portion of your emergency fund is. I would just suggest that you set aside whatever you can from your paycheck. Make it a priority. Make that the first thing that you do when you get your paycheck. If you cash your check, or if you go to the ATM, just make sure you just take that first $20 bill, shove it in the envelope, and let it go at that. And at some other point in time, you can take those 20s to the bank and have them exchanged for smaller bills, so that you're actually not just having all 20s in there. If you so desire to do that. I mean, it's totally up to you, but this is just the way that I like to do it. I mean, it works for me. Everybody's a little different. Everybody has their own needs and their own ideas, and this is just one of them that I wanted to share with you. Alright, thanks for watching, and this video is a little longer than I expected, but once you start talking about dollar bill, y'all, that's one of my favorite topics. Alright, thanks. Bye-bye.